Have you ever heard someone breathe long after they were dead? I have. And it didn't just happen once. It started with a low gasp, wet, gurgling, like someone choking on air that didn't belong to them. I remember standing frozen outside cell 3B, stethoscope still in my hand, watching the body of inmate number 14709 being wheeled away in a zipped black bag. I had just declared him dead. No pulse, no breath, no heartbeat, nothing. Then I heard it again. A slow, dragging inhale, like lungs learning to move after years of silence. I thought it was my imagination. That's what we tell ourselves, isn't it? When something happens that tears a hole through logic and leaves you with nothing but cold sweat and questions no textbook can answer?
But in my case, imagination wasn't enough to explain what happened next. Because even now, months later, I still hear him breathing.
My name is Lydia Shaw. I'm a registered nurse with 8 years of experience, 6 of which were spent working in high-security correctional facilities. For the last 2 years, I was assigned to the overnight medical unit at Fort Merrow Correctional Complex, a Level 4 facility housing some of the most dangerous inmates in the state. It's not a job people dream of. You don't wear cute scrubs or hand out lollipops. You carry trauma shears in one pocket and a panic button in the other. You learn to read body language faster than vital signs. You learn how to keep your back to a wall while suturing up stab wounds from lunchtime fights over borrowed soap. Our wing operated with a skeleton crew at night. 2 guards and 1 medical staff member, sometimes 2 if we were lucky. The infirmary itself was a narrow corridor of locked treatment rooms and 2 observation cells, all under constant surveillance. The doors were double reinforced. The oxygen tanks were locked in steel cages. Every drawer was inventoried at the end of each shift, and we weren't allowed to carry pens with removable caps. Despite the strict security, there were unspoken rules. Things you'd only learn after surviving your first few months. Never respond alone to a distress call from cell block D. Never look too long at the surveillance feed from the old laundry hall. And whatever you do, never ask why the morgue is still kept cold when the prison stopped doing in-house autopsies 5 years ago. Most nights, the worst I dealt with were panic attacks, withdrawal seizures, or inmates faking chest pain to get out of lockdown. I thought I could handle it all. I thought I'd seen the worst of what this place could throw at me. But then came October 12th, the night of the lockdown. The night we lost inmate number 14709 for the second time. It started like any other shift, quiet, stale, and tense. October 12th was a Thursday. I clocked in at 6:55 p.m., changed into my scrubs in the medical wing locker room, and picked up the keys from Officer Ramirez at Control Point 3. He gave me a nod but didn't say much. Ramirez never talked much on lockdown nights. And yes, that night was a lockdown. Full facility, no movement, no phone access, no visitors. Reason? Unspecified. That wasn't unusual. We'd been in lockdowns before, usually following gang altercations or drug raids, but something about that one felt different. The corridors were too still. Even the inmates, when I passed them, were too quiet. They didn't jeer or make crude comments like they usually did. Most just sat on their bunks, staring at the walls like they were waiting for something. By 9:30 p.m., I was in the infirmary checking inventory when Officer Blanchard radioed in. Medical to 3B, inmate Kellerman unresponsive. Kellerman. I froze for half a second. I knew the name. Everyone did. Inmate number 14709. Life sentence. Triple homicide. No known relatives. Always isolated. Never spoke unless spoken to. No disciplinary infractions, no suicide attempts, nothing. He'd been in solitary for over 8 months, transferred there after a psych evaluation flagged him for unpredictable behavior during full moons. That last detail was an inside joke among staff, except nobody ever laughed when they said it. I grabbed my emergency kit and followed Blanchard through the reinforced gate toward solitary block C. As we approached cell 3B, I immediately noticed something off. The observation window had been covered from the inside with what looked like pages from a Bible, smeared with what I first assumed was feces. But the scent in the air was metallic, not organic. Blood. Blanchard unlocked the outer door, and I stepped in first with my flashlight raised. Kellerman was on the floor, flat on his back, eyes wide open. His mouth was agape, as if mid-scream, but there was no sound, no motion. His chest didn't rise. I knelt down, gloves already on, and began my assessment. No pulse, no breath sounds, pupils fixed and dilated, rigor not yet fully set in, likely under 30 minutes since death. I looked up at Blanchard. "He's gone," I said. He nodded and called it in. Normally, that would be it. Wait for the coroner transport, log the time, move on. But this was when things started to fray at the edges. Because when I leaned in to close Kellerman's eyelids, I noticed something that stopped me cold. Moisture. His breath. Still warm, barely but measurable. I hovered my gloved fingers near his mouth, and for a fleeting second I felt it. A breath that shouldn't be there. I think I just felt... I started, but Blanchard cut me off. "He's cold, nurse. Let's get him bagged and out. You're just on edge." Maybe I was, maybe not. Kellerman's body was zipped into the black transport bag and wheeled to holding room 2. I went back to the infirmary and started filling out the paperwork. That's when I heard it. Faint at first, over the quiet hum of the ventilation system. A sound I've heard 1,000 times before, in 100 different rooms. Breathing. Deep. Rhythmic. Alive. Coming from the body cooler, where Kellerman had just been stored. I told myself it was the ventilation. That maybe the cooler door didn't seal right, that air pressure was cycling weird, or maybe I was just projecting sounds into silence, like we sometimes do in the graveyard shift, alone too long with nothing but hums and blinking lights. But at 1:12 a.m., the cooler monitor glitched. It was a digital unit, standard issue, regulated to log temperature every 5 minutes and alert staff if it climbed above a certain threshold. I'd checked it myself at 11:50 p.m. It was a steady 38 degrees if normal. Now it was flickering 38, 44, 51, and then suddenly, blank. I walked over, tapped the panel. Nothing. Then I opened the door. A burst of icy air hit me. Definitely colder than 50. Definitely not malfunctioning. The inside thermometer clipped to the wall read 37.2 degrees. I stood there, confused, trying to make sense of the mismatch, when I noticed the transport bag. It had shifted. The black bag holding Kellerman's body, which had been placed on the lower left rack, was now slightly diagonal, as if someone had tugged on it and let go mid-motion. And something else. Condensation on the inside of the bag, from within, as if breath had warmed it from inside out. I didn't unzip it. I should have. Part of me wanted to. But I closed the cooler door and logged the monitor issue in the maintenance book. I didn't mention the bag. At 1:46 a.m., the infirmary intercom buzzed. That in itself wasn't odd. Officers occasionally checked in or requested minor supplies, but this time no one spoke. Just static. Then a voice. Hoarse. Male. Barely audible. "I can't breathe." I pressed the reply button. "Who is this?" Silence. I replayed the call through the console. Fort Marrow had a 2-minute auto record on all intercom lines. The voice was still there. "I can't breathe." My stomach tightened. I called Control Point 2, asked if anyone had buzzed the medical line from the cell blocks. They said no. They hadn't routed any intercom traffic in the last 45 minutes. I played it again, this time slower. "I still breathe." I didn't sleep. I didn't sit. I just walked circles in the infirmary, glancing at the camera feed, listening to vents hiss and stop and hiss again. Every so often, I swore I heard movement in the holding room, like the creak of a gurney under shifting weight. At 2:33 a.m., the motion sensor in the cooler triggered. That's when I stopped pretending I was imagining it. I ran to the monitor and saw the red alert blinking. Zone 2A, movement detected. A simple infrared box that detects shifts in temperature, designed to trigger when a door opens or someone walks past. But I was alone, and no one had entered. I grabbed my flashlight and keys, heart pounding like I hadn't felt since nursing school trauma rotations. I forced myself back to the cooler. The bag had unzipped halfway. Not torn, not ripped open, unzipped, clean and smooth, like someone inside had done it with care. Inside, Kellerman's face stared up at me. Eyes shut, mouth slightly open, and a single streak of condensation on the clear interior of the bag. A fog line from breath. I stumbled backward and hit the wall. My hands shook. I remember whispering, "No, no, no," like that would undo it. Like reality could be reversed with denial. I radioed Blanchard. "Get back to medical now." "Why? What's wrong?" "Just come." I didn't even wait for his answer. I zipped the bag back, locked the cooler, and backed out of the room without turning my back. By the time Blanchard arrived, the sensor had reset. No movement, no alerts, nothing to prove what I'd seen. But I couldn't let it go. Because Kellerman had been dead. No heartbeat, no respiration. And yet, every instinct in me, the same instincts that told me when a patient was crashing or lying or about to code, was screaming that he wasn't gone, not fully. Không khí đã đổi. Kellerman wasn't resting. He was waiting. Not the whole prison, just the infirmary wing. Lights snapped off in a synchronized blink. The backup battery hummed to life, feeding dim emergency strips along the ceiling. Cameras cut to black. All comms with Control Point 2 dropped. I was suddenly alone. Alone. With Kellerman's half-zipped corpse in the cooler 20 feet away. I grabbed the emergency radio from the nurse's desk and tried every channel. Nothing but static. I switched to the panic beacon, an override system that pings every station in case of hostage situations. Still no reply. The air was thick, heavier. Not hot, just dense, as if the pressure had shifted. And then came the knock. Not on the infirmary door, from inside the cooler. 3 slow knocks, muffled by inches of steel and insulation, deliberate, evenly spaced. Knock, knock, knock. I couldn't move at first. My legs simply wouldn't respond. I stood there, hand still gripping the dead radio, eyes fixed on that door. And then a second sound followed. Dragging, like bare heels pulled across metal trays. I stepped forward. Against every instinct, every protocol, I walked toward the cooler. I had to see, had to know. The handle was cold, colder than metal should be in a room barely 40 degrees. My fingers stuck to it for a second. I pulled. The door gave with a hiss of suction. The bag was upright. Not lying flat. Upright, against the back wall, still zipped, but not in the position we had left it. Something had moved it. Something inside. And then his eyes opened. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My breath locked inside my lungs like a vacuum-sealed bag. His eyes were bloodshot but clear, moving, tracking me. "Kellerman," I whispered. He blinked, slowly, like someone waking from a coma. I stumbled back, slammed the cooler shut, twisted the lock twice, and backed away until I hit the medication cabinet. And then the voice returned. Not over the radio this time, not from the intercom. It was in the room. Low, broken. Coming from somewhere behind me, maybe from the vents, maybe from nowhere at all. "You weren't supposed to touch me." The words weren't angry. They were sad, like a child who'd been punished for something he didn't understand. I turned and saw him standing in the reflection of the medicine cabinet's glass door. But when I turned around, the room was empty. Only the reflection remained. I ran. I left the infirmary, keycard jammed into the reader, hands trembling, and sprinted down the corridor to the lockdown station. But the gate was sealed. Manual override locked. That's when the alarm blared, one I'd only ever heard in drills. Code red, containment breach in medical wing. I stared at the red beacon spinning above me. Containment breach? Kellerman was dead, wasn't he? The lights flickered again, and then for 2 seconds, just 2, I heard the unmistakable sound of labored breathing. Deep, rattling, right behind me. When I turned, I saw him again. Barefoot, pale, blood drying around his nose and lips, standing at the end of the hallway. Then the lights died a second time. Everything went black. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen. Could have been 10 seconds. Could have been 10 minutes. But when the emergency lights kicked back on, he was gone again. I sprinted back to the infirmary, desperate to reach the desk. There was a hardwired emergency line under the sink, old analog tech, not connected to the main grid. The moment I stepped inside, I stopped. The cooler was open. The bag lay on the floor, empty. That's when I noticed the walls, covered in writing. Not spray paint, not marker. Scratches. Thousands of tiny scratches, fingernail deep, all across the cooler walls, the tile floor, the underside of the gurney. One phrase repeated over and over. Still breathing. Still breathing. Still breathing. And then I heard a click. Behind me. A single sharp click, like a tongue snapping off the roof of a dry mouth. Then a whisper. She never listened either. I turned slowly. It wasn't Kellerman standing in the room. It was a woman. Pale,
translucent, her prison scrubs stained with blood. Hair matted, eyes wide with silent rage. Her hands were bound in rusted cuffs. She stood in the doorway, unmoving, staring straight at me, and then she opened her mouth. But it wasn't her voice that came out. It was his. "I warned you," he warned her. The temperature dropped again, sharply. My breath clouded. The emergency lights dimmed until the room was cast in an amber gloom. Suddenly, the floor beneath the cooler creaked, then snapped. Metal sheeting buckled as if something beneath was pushing upward, and the gurney rolled forward by itself, right up to me. Kellerman's body was on it again, back in the bag, zipped, still, as if none of it had happened. As if the night had rewound itself, leaving only memories behind. And one final breath, wet, slow, unmistakably human, escaping from the bag. That was when the door unlocked. Blanchard and 2 other officers stormed in, weapons raised, shouting commands. I collapsed. I couldn't speak, couldn't explain, could only point at the bag and say, "He's breathing." But when they unzipped it, he wasn't. Cold, still, rigor fully set in. Dead. Officially. Again. They said I was exhausted. That the long hours, the isolation, the lockdown tension, it had all gotten to me. They ran toxicology, interviewed me for 6 hours, put me on administrative leave pending psychological evaluation. They ruled Kellerman's death a standard cardiac arrest due to undiagnosed congenital heart defect. They sealed the surveillance footage from the medical wing between 2:30 and 4 o'clock a.m. due to technical failure. The motion sensor logs? Deleted? The emergency beacon? Never activated. None of it existed. Not officially. I tried to push back. I filed a formal complaint, but Fort Merrow was run by the state, and the state doesn't like stories that suggest its prison system can't explain its dead. So they buried it like they buried him. And they offered me a transfer, minimum security, day shift. To ease the stress, they said. I declined. I resigned. But that didn't stop what followed. The first night home, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the dragging of bare feet. The breath, wet and gurgling, behind me in the dark. I thought it would fade, thought maybe it was just PTSD. But then came the packages. No return address. Just plain manila envelopes delivered to my doorstep every Wednesday at 3:17 p.m. Inside, copies of inmate records, always for a different prisoner. All dead. All transferred to Fort Merrow in the last decade. All housed in solitary 3B before they died. At first I thought someone was trying to help me, that maybe another staff member had seen what I'd seen. But when I traced the barcodes from the forms, I found something worse. None of those inmates existed in the official system. Their names were gone from digital archives. No fingerprints in CODIS, no release records, no relatives listed. They were ghosts, buried under false names, removed from history. Like someone had rewritten them out of the world. Except I had proof they'd been alive, even if briefly. Then came the dreams. I'd see Kellerman, standing at the foot of my bed, or in the corner of my hallway. Sometimes he'd speak, always the same phrase. "You heard me." One night, I found scratch marks on my bathroom mirror. Still breathing. I live alone. Eventually, I stopped trying to fight it. I moved across the state, changed my name on my nursing license, started working home care, terminal patients only, no night shifts, no facilities, no locked doors. But it didn't stop, because it wasn't just Kellerman. It was whatever used him. A pattern, a voice, a force that lived beneath the walls of Fort Merrow, feeding on forgotten inmates, on people no one would ask about, hidden behind bureaucratic shadows and clinical language. I started reading old staff reports. Turns out I wasn't the first nurse to resign after a death in cell 3B, not even the 5th, but none of them talked. Maybe they were warned. Maybe they understood that some truths only stay quiet if you do. I still have the last envelope. Inside is a photo. Black and white, grainy, surveillance frame from 1996. Infirmary hallway. The door to the cooler. And in the corner, barely visible, a figure in white scrubs standing in front of an open bag. Hand resting on a chest that shouldn't be rising. The timestamp on the photo? October 12th, 3:02 a.m., exactly 27 years before my night. The same hour, the same cell, the same cooler. Only this time, the nurse in the photo wasn't me. But she looked exactly like me. People ask why I never went back, why I left nursing, why I changed cities, numbers, friends.
They don't understand. Because what I saw that night wasn't just a medical anomaly. It wasn't about a man who didn't stay dead. It was about a place. A room built to contain what cannot be named. A system designed not to heal, but to forget. Fort Marrow doesn't keep people locked inside to protect the public. It keeps something else in. I've stopped trying to explain it. The more I talk, the harder it is to sleep, the harder it is to breathe. Sometimes I still wake up with condensation on my bedroom window from the inside. Sometimes I find scratch marks on the inside of my closet door. 3 short lines, perfectly spaced. And always I hear it. Late at night, just past 3 a.m., a breath. One that doesn't belong to me. And I've learned something that no textbook, no shift training, no psych consult could ever teach me. Not every corpse stops breathing. Some just wait until someone listens. So if you ever work the night shift and the cooler creaks, don't check it. Don't open the door. Don't ask who's still breathing. Because if you hear it, if you acknowledge it, you're next.